The entire team at the Emsolation podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians and cultures of the lands and seas on which we live and work. We pay our respects to all First Nations peoples, elders and ancestors. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and stand in solidarity towards a shared future. I personally want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I record this podcast every week, the Wurundjeri people. I recognise their continued connection to the land and waters of this beautiful place I call home. Always was, always will be.
M. Rusciano.
I've just been sitting there in the corner clutching my little anxiety blanket, just lost in these sex scenes.
And Michael Lucas.
How does it not look like you've got an enormous wang on the stage?
This is Emsolation.
Not that you're in any way biased.
How dare you? How dare you point out exactly what I am?
You're in Emsolation.
Hello and welcome to Emsolation. I'm so mad. I'm so mad, and I'm at my 10th attempt at this intro, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know, when my husband, if you're in Melbourne at the moment, it's been a heat wave. It's so hot. It's hot all the time, right? And my husband walks around turning things off, So if he's not feeling hot, he'll go around and turn the air conditioner off. So my husband's body temperature apparently gets to decide how the rest of us live. And I am tired of it. So I've just walked into another room to record this intro because he was being noisy. God, I can't wait for my studio. And I walked into our bedroom, which I specifically left the air conditioning on in because I knew I'd be coming back in here, and he's turned it off. And I've walked in here and it's a pit of just body smells. And I didn't ask him. And I'm like, why? Because he was feeling quite cool. You know why? Because he had a cold shower. Because he'd just done a cycling session. So he's feeling cool. Why should the air conditioner be on?
I am begging you, put the air conditioner on.
Hi, my name is Em Rusciano. I'm a writer, a singer, a stand-up comedian, a podcaster, a maximalist power queen, a neurodivergent magic brain, a highly sensitive person. Thus, if my temperature is messed with, and together with my best friend since I was 11, Australian screenwriter and podcaster, Mr. Michael Lucas, I bring you this offering each week. This room's cooling down now. I'm okay. Do you know what I mean? Don't make decisions about the room temperature for me, thanks. I've had a good week. It was Elio, my toddler's 3rd birthday, so we had an extravaganza. Michael and I talk a bit about that. He's obsessed with dinosaurs, as most of you know. So I love a theme. Oh, my God, give me a theme and I will run a mile. So it was Dinosaur-a-Palooza. It was a festival of dinosaurs. So that was great. I'm recording right now on the 26th of January, which for our international listeners is marked as Australia Day. It is a date that deeply divides our nation. So Michael and I do talk about that. I want to let you know. And I also want to remind you, if you have a differing opinion to he and I, don't feel the need to shout it at us in an awful aggressive manner. If you want to send an email, fine. Maybe sometimes it helps to write an email and then not send it because it's out of your system. Do you know what I mean? We also talk about, just realising, no wonder I felt a certain type of way after we finished recording. We spoke about former Australian of the Year and tireless, fierce advocator for sexual assault survivors, Grace Tame. We speak about the controversy surrounding her because she went to the lodge, the Prime Minister's lodge, and refused to smile in photos standing next to Scott Morrison for reasons I think are totally valid. You know, a lot of you who have followed me for a long time, look, I based an entire stand-up show around women being told to smile and the idea that little girls are conditioned to be liked and little boys are conditioned to be fierce and courageous and ambitious. And I think nothing illustrated that inner thinking and subconscious belief that women are here as adornments and to make things prettier and lighter and easier and more comfortable. I think that was made fairly apparent that is still some people's deep held belief. I think Grace Tame is a fucking icon and a hero. You should know that before you listen to this. You should know that that's mine and Michael's viewpoint. We also talk about a woman whose partner likes to sleep in a nest. So, you know, we go deep, we go shallow. Far out. It's true. It's a bit of a love conundrum. A lady finally visited her new partner's house and discovered that he sleeps in a nest of clothing and she didn't know what to do. She tried to sleep in the nest and you'll hear what the outcome of that was.
Some birds build nests not just as cradles for their eggs and chicks, but as lodging houses for the whole year.
I wanted to let you know, I'm going to keep the intro short. I know I always say that, but I truly am. I wanted to let you know that I've just finished listening to a podcast that has rearranged my cells, my DNA. And this is not a SponCon mention. It is a Spotify original, but that's not why I'm mentioning it. You know, my soul cannot be bought like that. I only recommend things to you that I have truly loved. That's the rule. I know I did talk about someone in a nest, but that's okay. That's a valid life choice. Nesters. I'm sure there's a whole subculture of it. Now I'm going to have to go down a rabbit hole of Googling if there is a nesting community. I'm sure there would be. And I do like the idea of a nest, just not with clothes. The podcast is called Who's Daniel Johns? And of course, frontman of Silverchair. I think it's a 6-episode kind of podcast documentary style project that Daniel was very much involved in. It speaks to him and his manager and producers, promoters, people who are around him, you know, during those heady days. And I didn't expect to listen to a podcast about Daniel Johns and walk away feeling seen and feeling kindred to him. I know it sounds, I can hear myself out loud. Okay, crazy fan. I wasn't a fan of Silverchair's music. I was a fan of his. I could see what an excellent musician he is, and he is. He's our Prince. He truly is our Prince, and you'll understand why I say that when you finish listening to this podcast.
It had been 20 years of torment and exaggerations and bullshit. And I always was thinking to myself, one day they're going to take it too far.
This is the story of Daniel Johns, in his words, not theirs.
But the way he spoke about wanting to get weirder and wanting to make things that lit him up and constantly butting heads with business, with the people who were making money from him, and constantly being told it was too weird and too much and just do what everyone else is doing. And the irony around you don't become this huge, incredible artist if you do what everyone else is doing. But they want you to do that. So you're constantly having to be in conflict. So anyway, this podcast, this thing about Daniel Johns, the former frontman of Silverchair, had that effect on me. And I think perhaps it'll have a similar effect on you, but maybe it'll manifest in a different way. Wow, this was supposed to be a short intro. All right, anyway, that's enough for me. I'm also watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, finally. Loving that on Amazon. I watched Dune on Amazon. So good. I mean, there's something for everyone in that film. Honestly, Timothée Chalamet, Oscar Isaacs and Jason Momoa, just as a headline. So good. That's what I've been up to. I'm going to bring Michael in now. It's, we go there. But it's important to have uncomfortable conversations. That is how you grow, evolve, and ultimately get better. Remember that. All right, gang. I'm going. Play the music.
M. Rusciano and Michael Lucas. This is Emsolation.
Well, Michael Lucas, we're into our 3rd year of making Emsolation, the podcast born of the international pandemic. And finally, the Rona.
And our friendship.
And our friendship. No, but that's why we started it, because of coronavirus.
Yes.
And we've talked about it at length, ad nauseum. We've noticed people getting it. We've obsessed over chief health officers. And finally, it has infiltrated our ranks. Someone had COVID.
They had.
Who?
I love how you're doing this build-up. My husband, Adrian, finally got COVID in between our last episode and now.
Unbelievable.
But I'm very happy to report straight out the gates, he got it. It was thankfully very mild, and he is already testing negative and recovered, and we're soon to come out of the 7 days ISO. And I somehow, well, actually, I know. I'm going to say I know how. The booster, I would say, didn't get it.
Right.
So overall, we're very lucky, and it's a good story. But it does feel it was a long and winding road to get to our 3rd season before the pandemic actually encroached on us. What a slow build.
I want everyone to understand my OCD is peaking. My intrusive thoughts, my worry of manifesting negative destiny is at 10 out of 10 as Michael talks about this. And I'm touching wood with all 4 limbs right now, like not in a sexy way, literal wood. because he's right. It's only been Adrian. But I'm glad he's well, and you can imagine my panic. I mean, he called. He made the correct choice in calling me, but I didn't answer because I don't know what I was doing, generally avoiding my phone. And then he did a voice to text, and all I got was, you know how bad they are at interpreting the truth.
Oh, no.
Hi, it's me, COVID, okay, lockdown. I was like, so I rang him back, didn't answer. And so just text me, what? Are you okay? And then immediately when I told my mother and when I told Scott's mother, and the first question was, well, have you seen him? Have you got it? Like they just link us.
I know. Well, and I have to say one of the absolute luckiest things was we're in Sydney, and as it turned out, we had not seen, we had seen one friend in the period of time who was someone who had recently recovered from COVID. And other than that, I mean, yeah, for me, I was more afraid of passing it on to someone than I almost was of getting it myself or ourselves. And thankfully, we were really lucky that we were not in a position where that could have happened.
And was he a graceful COVID patient?
Yeah, look, he was. Like, I mean, by and large, he seemed to know what to do. I mean, the weirdest thing about it is, I don't know whether anyone else had this in the pandemic, but we developed an obsession with how many steps you get every day. I think it's pretty common.
Okay, yeah, right.
It's really thrown a spanner in the works because we're now trapped in this little tiny apartment. And we're obsessed with getting 10,000 steps a day. So I'm looking out to the balcony where he is just walking one way and then the other, one the other. And do you know how hard it is to get to 10,000 steps?
Is he literally walking on the balcony right now?
Back and forth and back and forth.
Turn your computer around. I want to see it.
Hang on. Oh, fuck.
Oh, my God. He's literally pacing. Respect. I respect the commitment to the 10,000 steps. Well, look, your absence was felt this week at Elio's dinosaur-themed extravaganza birthday. I have to tell you, your present arrived, and at just the right time, I have to say, because we had the morning session, and I meticulously planned this birthday because it is his third pandemic birthday. He's never actually had a party that involved other children, and I wasn't about to start this year, I'll tell you right now. So it was all adults, but I bought everyone a dinosaur outfit, and I hope it was noted that the outfit I bought myself was very realistic and of a much higher standard than everyone else's in the family. I mean,
it was impressive.
Priorities, of course. I want Elio to always know I put in the most effort, okay? I birthed you. I grew you in my body. I have got myself a proper velociraptor head.
Clever girl.
I had a little bit of Masked Singer flashbacks, I've got to tell you, when I put the head on. So my costume was a velociraptor with like muscle. I had quadricep pads and I was stacked in the back. She had a booty too. Like there was muscles inbuilt in this outfit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but really hot. Like
it was impressive.
In the end, I probably picked the wrong outfit because Scott got a self-inflating T-Rex situation, which had inbuilt cooling. Oh. So in Melbourne at the moment, it's 1,000 million degrees every day. So Scott was loving life in that thing. And the girls had onesies, microfiber, not natural. They were sweaty too. But to my teenage daughter's credit, they got up at 6:15 a.m. And I know. And they'd stayed up late watching Euphoria because, God, that's their weekly viewing now, and they get together and they dissect it, and I have not delved into Euphoria. I think I'm too old. But everything is Euphoria. So they stayed up late watching it and then got up early the next morning, and they were all waiting for him, and he came downstairs and we'd done a dinosaur window, much like the Maya Christmas windows, only way more spectacular. Mm-hmm. And everyone gets a birthday window in this household. As of this week, I decided everyone's going to do this moving forward.
From now. So Marcella and Odie, you might not remember them from your childhood.
No, they won't. But it's now becoming a tradition. I announced, I said, I love the idea of the birthday window. I've already ordered the Timothy Chalamet life-size cutout because Odie's birthday is on February the 16th.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to be making a shrine to the Manic Pixie Dream Boy for her birthday window.
Yep.
And I've challenged them all for my birthday window. They may need your help. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm a mother looking for things for my kids to do so they don't want to leave the house and get the virus.
Yeah.
So he came downstairs, we're all there. He loved it. We took photos. We gave him all the presents. And then we went to my parents' house where we had the real dinosaurs, the theatre troupe arrive. Yeah. And, oh, God, it was so...
It was incredible.
It was incredible. It was so magic, and it was really hot. And the actors inside the dinosaur costumes, and it was just his face, it was pure joy. And therefore we were all just enamoured. It was just, He was squealing and chasing, and he was right on the edge of terror.
See, I was a little bit worried that I had no doubt it was going to be such an extravaganza, but I felt like this is going to be so overwhelming for this shot. Like, it could go either way.
Yeah.
It really could go either way. And I was so relieved when I saw the footage and he was just really into it.
But Elio's kind of space of choice is the line of terror and ecstasy. That's where he kind of just, because, you know, it's really funny. Our friend Jamila, her sister Mim, is part of this great kids group called The Beanies, and she sent me their little dinosaur video that they did, and it's really cute. And I had to confess back to Jamila and say, look, Elio actually only watches Twitch streams of gamers creating their 4K high-def avatars of dinosaurs that actually existed, and these things look so real, and we watch them. That's all he'll watch. He's moved straight into nerddom. Like, he is right there, and he's not interested in any cartoon dinosaurs, I'll tell you right now.
Right.
It's got to be real. So he likes to be scared and happy at the same time. So it was good. It was great. And then we go home and your gift arrived.
Oh, what timing.
'Cause he was...
And what an original gift it was.
It was a wonderful gift.
Well, look, I thought it was pretty foolproof. I got him 2 dinosaurs. Two. They were quite appealingly sized, sort of soft plastic dinosaurs. I feel like they're hardy, but they're not going to injure him.
No, they were perfect.
But he does have he's got quite the army. He's just adding to the army of dinosaurs.
Oh, we could stage
right.
a miniature full reenactment of Jurassic Park at this point. I'm telling
I'll be
you.
disappointed if you don't.
No, well, I've since learned Jurassic Park is quite unliked by dinosaur enthusiasts because there's a lot of inaccuracies that have started rumours. Like, for instance, Velociraptor is tiny, the size of a turkey, in fact, and more bird-like than you think. Like, they have a lot of feathers. But in the Jurassic Park, if you believe what they have to say, they're quite big and no feathers. So these are the things I'm learning. Did you know that there were like over 700 species discovered of dinosaurs, and all 7 continents there has been fossils found on? I have these facts coming out my anus.
Well done. God, tell you what, this has tested you more than when he was into Beyonce. You just had all of that information sitting right there ready to go.
And as you pointed out, his and your interests have dissected completely.
Totally. Yeah. I was really into dinosaurs. The great passion of my childhood was dinosaurs, and in my adulthood it's Beyonce, and he's already traversed both. It's brilliant.
It's very true. So, yes, no, it was a good week. We had a great time. I am now going to move into... I'm just going to take a breath. Michael and I have chosen to talk about difficult topics today because... we need to. We always try and talk about in this podcast the things that have obsessed us and we're interested in, we're texting about, and that's always a good indicator that you lot will probably want to hear about it.
So I hope you enjoyed the light fun of the dinosaur party.
That was what we call a shit sandwich in the radio industry, where you start with the compliments, then in the middle you ram the hard stuff, and then we'll end on something light and fluffy. Where should we start? Let's start with something easy like Australia Day. Now, look. Whenever you're listening to this recording, if it's on the day of that it's coming out, Michael and I are recording on Australia Day. Right now, currently, we are working. My entire team is working. I do not observe this public holiday. And for a long time, I didn't feel brave enough to say that out loud, especially working in commercial radio. And for a long time, I was silent. And I realised a couple years ago that kind of made me complicit. And speaking out about this isn't brave. What is brave is to be an Indigenous person in this country. When did you start publicly saying, Michael Lucas, we need to change the date?
Look, I was pretty shit for a long time, or I just didn't think about it. For me, well into my 20s, Australia Day was about the Triple J Hottest 100.
Yeah, right.
And like beers and barbecue. And obviously, I was aware of the history. But if I'm perfectly honest, the change came when I started to have First Nations friends.
Yes.
And it's stupid that needed to happen for me to suddenly think about it. But I'm quite lucky in a way in the film industry. There's so many great First Nations artists working in the film industry, many of whom I've been really privileged to work with. And I've sort of started my career around the same time as Facebook. And I just started, it was kind of through them on Facebook. I mean, obviously, I knew it was a day of mourning and all this sort of stuff, but I feel ashamed to say it, but it was finally seeing them speak about it that made me think, oh my God, what am I doing? What? Why is this a nationalistic celebration? This is not an event to celebrate. It's an event to remember, for sure. It's a hugely consequential event, but the idea of this being a big national party to pat ourselves on the back is just offensive. And so, yeah, it wasn't really until well into adulthood.
Yeah.
And then I started going to the protests. Weirdly, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of work on looking back to the bicentennial. I think that if the listeners of this podcast will probably
absolutely
think what that could be about.
That's what I was about to bring up with you. Remember, what's the song? Celebration of the Nation. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
This is why I've never really celebrated Australia Day. I think there might have been a couple years in my late teens where I just wanted to assimilate. But it was never a day in my house that my parents ever acknowledged, in the way that my friends, my Anglo-Saxon friends did with the Barbies and the thongs and the Australian flags draped around them and all of that. But I remember at the bicentennial at my Diamond Creek Primary School, where I went to primary school, the Jed Cow emblem, we made bricks. We had to make bricks, and the bricks were then used to put in a commemorative barbecue. Oh, my God, saying that out loud now, I realise what the fuck, oh, my God. And I remember vividly drawing into the clay, and some kid whose name was probably Jaden was looking at me like, oh, are you drawing a sausage? It's not Wog Day. And I just remember at that moment it clicked for me, okay, that's what this day is. Is for Jadens to make people who aren't like Jaden feel like shit. And obviously my experience is nothing like what our First Nation peoples experience and have gone through, but for me there's less of an excuse for not denouncing it because I've always known that it's not good. And my children know from the get-go, but I didn't start speaking about it publicly till a couple of years ago, and I'm very sorry for that, and I feel enormous guilt around that. And I think we're not the only ones. I think a lot of our listeners would be listening to you and I now being like, yeah, me too. And I think sometimes the guilt paralyzes you and you don't want to draw attention to the fact maybe you haven't done enough, so you don't do anything. And this is going to be uncomfortable for non-Indigenous people, and it fucking should be. So, modern Australia's genesis involved invasion and genocide and colonisation, and we can't have our nation's National Day of Celebration being held on the date that our First Nations people's land was stolen. Like, if you say that sentence, you isolate it from people feeling like their national identity is being attacked. We celebrate our national identity on the day our First Nations people's lands were stolen.
Which is unique to us in a terrible way. It's not like America celebrates on that day. It's not like, Bastille Day is not about that. Also, of course, only been since 1994. So all of this bullshit about, since time immemorial, no, it became a public holiday then.
And so inevitably the discussion comes around, well, what then? And I think what's important to remember, if you're listening to this and feeling a bit challenged, and like, well, are you saying that I'm a bad person because I'm proud to be Australian? No. What I'm saying is there's space to hold the true in your heart and in your hands, and we need to change the date. But the tricky thing is I don't think we have the date yet. I don't think it exists, and that's the problem.
Yeah, we should be taking the recommendations in the Statement from the Heart, the Uluru Statement from the Heart. We should go for a treaty and we should amend our constitution.
Agreed.
And when we do that, I would suggest that would be a better date.
I agree with you.
For a celebration, I still think that we should observe what today is, but as a day of mourning.
Exactly.
As well, the more I sort of allow myself to really think about this and engage with First Nations artists and everything like that, the more that I think, God, firstly, the fact that we have the oldest continuous culture on Earth, and that culture has survived and has managed to persist and in some cases to flourish in the modern age is absolutely incredible, and we should be proud of that and we should be listening to that. And it's the one thing, it makes our country so unique. We shouldn't be turning away from it as well. And also the other thing that just blows my mind is I think our First Nations people show us a lot of patience, if I'm honest, like more than we probably deserve.
Yeah.
Definitely more than we deserve.
Yeah. And Australia is the only country in the Commonwealth to not have a treaty with its Indigenous peoples. And I agree with you. The date needs to be when that treaty happens. And for those of you, basically a treaty is a formal agreement between the government and the First Nations people, which would have legal ramifications and outcomes, and it would recognise past behaviours and atrocities committed towards and to the First Nations peoples, and it would also acknowledge them as the first and sovereign peoples of the land, which is so important. And there will be agreements over who would make decisions moving forward. It's essentially a peace agreement between the Australian government and the First Nations peoples. And it's so important. And New Zealand's National Day is actually happening soon, the 6th of February, and it marks the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi between the Crown and the Maori people. And many people see that as New Zealand's kind of founding document. That was, I think it was, 1840s. And that's their national day. New Zealand have outdone us again. They constantly get it right.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but I think that it's achievable. And again, I speak about this obviously as a privileged white woman, and I hesitate to do this segment without having an Indigenous contributor, but then it's not up to Indigenous people and First Nations peoples to educate white people. It's up to us as allies to educate ourselves. And I'm wary talking about this because inevitably I will get attacked. You won't. That is just science. And so I want to talk about this in a way that I'm not attacking anyone who is proud to be Australian. My father came here from another country and made an incredible life for us, and that's because this country allowed him to do that. But that doesn't cancel out the acknowledgement of how this modern Australia, this country that my father did emigrate to, how it was founded, and wrapping your national identity up in that idea of that real barbecue, ochre, white culture, and that's what it means to be Australian. You're better than that. Everyone's better than that. Everyone deserves better recognition than that. So I think acknowledging First Nations people on this day doesn't mean that you're saying being Australian is bad. It actually means you believe that we can get better, I think.
Yeah, totally. And also the path forward for us as a country is through reconciliation, through an embrace of First Nations people and culture, and that's got to be the future.
So we will leave you now, ponder all of that, and sit with feeling uncomfortable in whatever way you do, and go and educate yourself. And if you have questions, Google them. Don't ask a First Nations person. And we'll be back to talk about Grace Tame not smiling, standing next to ScoMo. How dare she? That's coming up.
M. Rusciano and Michael Lucas. This is Emsolation.
Okay, Michael Lucas. On Tuesday, the outgoing Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, attended the PM's lodge for her final hurrah as Australian of the Year.
Yeah.
Photos of her at said hurrah have gone viral. Quite viral.
Haven't they ever? That's still number one trend.
As it should be. I think as it should be. Now, Grace Tame was named Australian of the Year, and I want to give a trigger warning here for any sexual assault victims. We will be discussing what happened to Grace. She's been a vocal and fierce advocate for survivors of sexual assault. When she was 15, she was groomed and raped by her 58-year-old maths teacher. Now, because Grace is from Tasmania, they have sexual assault victim gag laws, which means Grace can't speak about her experience, but the media and the perpetrator can. Now, far from letting that deter her, she has been a fierce and vocal and staunch advocate for survivors of sexual assault, especially those where it's happened in institutions. And just here's a little bit of the advocacy work she's been doing.
I remember him saying, "Don't tell anybody." I remember him saying, "Don't make a sound." Well, hear me now. Using my voice amongst a growing chorus of voices that will not be silenced. Let's make some noise, Australia! Trauma does not discriminate, nor does it end when the abuse itself does. First Nations people, people with disabilities, the LGBTQI community, and other marginalised groups face even greater barriers to justice. Every voice matters. Survivors, be proud. Our voices are changing history.
I'm incredibly proud of Australia for embracing this issue. I'm still sort of in a state of disbelief, you know, from being a silenced abuse survivor to having this platform that I intend to use to welcome all the other survivors to join me.
You know, as is often the case when an issue that has been shrouded in darkness for such a long time is suddenly thrust into the light, there's widespread shock and disbelief over how something so evil could happen, and not just happen, but happen so ubiquitously. And the answer is plain and simple: silence. Evil thrives in silence. Behaviour unspoken, behaviour ignored, is behaviour endorsed. To my fellow survivors, it is our time. We need to take this opportunity. We need to be bold and courageous. Recognise we have a platform on which I stand with you in solidarity and support. Share your truth. It is your power. One voice, your voice, and our collective voices can make a difference. We are on the precipice of a revolution whose call to action needs to be heard loud and clear. That's right, you got it. Let's keep making noise, Australia.
So, Michael, Grace obviously got named Australian of the Year, and then it was like almost kismet from the universe. All that, well, it inspired Brittany Higgins to come forward. And then the Liberal government to completely mishandle everything around this issue. And then it kind of, Grace had to take on the man and his government who awarded her the Australian of the Year award.
It shouldn't take having children to have a conscience. And actually, on top of that, having children doesn't guarantee a conscience.
It's interesting that one of the criticisms by some have said that Grace politicised her position, but how could she not? She had that platform, and then the Brittany Higgins story erupted. Was she supposed to stay silent when her whole thing has been about, you know, facilitating people being heard? I mean, her famous catch cry in her first speech was, "Let's make some noise."
Yeah.
So she couldn't stay silent about it.
Yeah. No, but she was very critical of Scott Morrison, and turning up to, you know, the lodge and everyone knowing the history between her and him and how she feels about his party, the cameras were ready. The cameras were fucking poised. I mean, she was walking into the lion's den, quite frankly. And Grace did something revolutionary for a woman. She didn't smile. She didn't bury her feelings. She didn't make nice. She was authentic and didn't feel the need to lie, and stood next to a man who she feels has profoundly let her down and her cause down. And she was stony-faced and delivered a series of lethal side eyes. Yeah.
It was so fascinating to me that the start of her tenure as Australian of the Year was marked by this incredible speech, which made such an impact, that speech. And the end of it was marked by a silent look, and both of them were so powerful.
So Morrison shook her hand and congratulated her on the engagement. And if you look at the footage, Grace is clearly uncomfortable. She's looking at the ground a lot. Jenny, Scott's wife, said hello, and
she sort of smiled and acknowledged her briefly. And also, it's not like she did shake his hand, unlike, for example, the bushfire victims who refused on that front. Like, there was, for people who talk about civility, she was civil. She just left it, icily civil, I would say.
I would say she'd handled it like, you know, we'd expected a man to handle it who was unhappy with his company. Yeah. I think there's been many instances in the past where men haven't smiled or have crossed their arms or even turned their backs to people speaking in Parliament.
Scott Morrison to Tanya Plibersek, yeah.
Scott Morrison, Tanya Plibersek. So where's all my think pieces around that? Where's my memes around that? No. And so this has really divided the media and also shown the media's bias. We know who's left and right very clearly from the headlines.
I have to say I'm really fascinated by the divide because for us, and I know that we're maybe in our own little bubble, but when this happened, Em and I were like, it was almost like she texted me and I was in the process of trying to find the best footage of it. Like our texts were going back and forth and we just had the same instant reaction, which was absolutely electrified to the extent that I kept watching it and watching it and watching it. And it took me a while to realise all the levels at which I found it so electrifying. But not everyone had that reaction.
She's a hero. There's she's a fucking hero side, and then there's she's a rude child side. And someone on the Grace is a rude child team is Channel 10's political editor and sometimes project host, Peter Van Onselen, aka PVO. And he smashed out a little column, just a little bit of rage typing happened on PVO's lappy, I would say, for The Australian, calling Grace ungracious, rude and childish. And the bit that broke me, and I based an entire stand-up tour around this sentiment, was her refusal to smile for the cameras while she stood next to the Prime Minister. Oh, it fucking set me off. But do you know who else it set off? Oh, political journo, Amy Remeikis. And can I just do this? Can I just give Amy Remeikis? Wow! Oh, you know when you get into a fight with someone at work or someone does something awful to you and then you go home and you stand in the shower for 20 minutes and then you fucking rehearse everything you should have said. Everything you should have said, and it's perfect and you're ready.
And you never get to say it in the moment, never get to say it, much less get to say it on national television.
Amy Remeikis on the project eviscerated PVO for his column. Here is for me, the absolute choice moment, the moment where I became Meryl Streep at the Oscars, just yesing at the television. Have a listen. This is political journalist Amy Remeikis.
My point was just simply, I don't have a problem with her having a problem with Scott Morrison.
Why did you write it? Why did you write it?
I think it's juvenile to respond that way.
You attempted to police a woman who lost all agency as a child, where she was groomed and told how to behave, and she has since come out and made her entire adulthood about not behaving in the way that other people think that she should, that she's going to be true to herself. And because of the politics of civility, you wrote a column in the national masthead slamming her for that. You said she shouldn't have gone. She has every right to be there. She has every right to show her feelings. And if she doesn't want to be part of a politically staged photo op, she doesn't have to smile to make other people feel better and not hurt their feelings. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you should know better, Peter.
And Carrie Bickmore got in there too, which would have been hard for her, as that's her co-host sitting.
Oh, she's got to continue and do the rest of the show with him.
Yeah, so a lot of women don't understand why Grace's act has meant so much to them. But every woman I know, especially me, has a version of that photo. And mine were oftentimes on billboards and on the side of buses. We all have a photo we've had to be in with a man who's making our life very difficult and had to smile our way through it. And I think so many of us have looked at Grace doing this, and maybe the door is slightly ajar, and maybe it's okay for us to think about, you know, not placating, protecting and promoting mediocre, underachieving middle-aged men anymore, maybe.
And also, you know, women in particular are socialised to, you have to make people feel comfortable. It's very important. As a woman, you're just making people feel comfortable, particularly men around you. And it is a bit of a toxic thing that all women are socialised to. And there's something electrifying seeing someone just not do that, not take that step to make him feel comfortable.
Zero fucks on how that man was feeling. And it's that, you know, the Margaret Atwood quote. Margaret Atwood is a poet, a writer, a lecturer, a literary critic.
Wrote The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. And it's a very famous quote. She was speaking to a male friend and asked what men are afraid of. And he said, men are afraid of women laughing at them. And when she asked her female friends the same thing, they said women are afraid of men killing them. And I think in this instance, all these men are incensed that, you know, she's perhaps making fun of this man. And if all these men who are feeling like it was a great insult, what they're feeling is actual panic, because the status quo suits all these men. Having women just keep their heads down and having women making sure everything's nice all the time for them suits them. But if there is some kind of maybe an indicator that this could be changing, like imagine if all women suddenly stopped feeling the need to do this. Like it would be a fucking movement. Imagine.
Oh, I know.
Imagine if we all just went, we're Grace Taming it today. We're fucking Grace Taming it. Oh my God.
And there are so many men that walk through the world with that luxury of if they're disagreeing with things, then that just rains out over everyone around them in a much more severe way than just simply not smiling. And the reason why I found that people saying, why couldn't she smile? She should have smiled. I found it really insidious because she's a victim of sexual assault, and in her specific case, she was groomed. She was groomed as a child, and at the core of grooming is exploiting the fact is someone teaching a child, a woman, a girl to say, it's very important that you do what makes me feel good, even if you feel uncomfortable yourself. That's the kernel of it. So to specifically say to a survivor of sexual assault that you should have made more of an effort to make that man feel good feels, I can't believe that people are so openly saying that.
That's it. It is accepted. I mean, I literally had a baby die, went back to work 2 weeks later and was taken aside and told that I was making people uncomfortable with my anger and that I needed to make more of an effort to smile at work. And this was only a few years ago. So there is absolutely, most people in society have no qualms in feeling put out when a woman doesn't make them feel peaceful. So as Grace Tame heads off into the next phase, I hope the advocacy continues. I hope the rage continues because she made such a difference. She really did.
She's an icon.
And I hope this doesn't, whatever's being written about her now, I hope this doesn't deflect from all the shit she fucking accomplished and everything she drew attention to. And yeah, she's a hero. She's a fucking hero. Oh, God. Okay.
All this, and look, on a completely superficial level, she had a spectacular coat on. I just want to say that as well.
The leather stars. I loved it. She had her armor on. It was like a biker jacket, red, which is like a protection color for your heart, which I love, with the stars because she's a.
But it was a loud jacket as well. I love that it was a loud jacket.
Yeah, and
I felt like you would wear that jacket.
100%. And it wasn't a pretty dress with florals on it. She was there and she meant business, and she handed back her crown and her scepter.
That's right.
But remained a queen.
Fiancé at her side.
Yeah. Actually, that was good. I'm going to say that again. She handed back her crown and her scepter, but remained a queen. Yes! Yes! Okay, now we're going to shift gears and put on our Dilemma Doctor hats because Michael Lucas, this one could not be ignored. Please tell all the Emsolation community about the nest.
Okay, so this caught my attention on Twitter. Someone had posted this personal narrative, and I was immediately compelled. And the headline was, "My 24-year-old boyfriend sleeps in a nest of clothes and towels and refuses to buy a bed." So I was in. I was basically in.
I mean, just the idea of an adult nest appeals to me straight away. Just the idea of a nest. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
So the correspondent has written, "I've been dating my boyfriend for 3 years and only just finally visited his apartment this week. I was amazed to see in his bedroom there is no bed. Instead, there is a huge pile of clothes and towels in the middle of the room. My boyfriend said it was his nest and he sleeps in it. I could not believe this. He showed me how he does it, and he kind of curls up in a ball in the middle and piles some of the clothes and towels on top of him. That's how he sleeps. He told me he'd never had a guest in his nest before, and I was welcome to try, or I could sleep on the sofa. It turns out the reason he had not invited me to his apartment is because he was embarrassed about his nest. I thought it was very odd to have a nest, but I tried to sleep in it with him. I found it very uncomfortable and weird, and I also noticed it smelled. I went to sleep on the sofa. In the morning, my boyfriend confronted me and said, 'Why do you hate my nest?' I said I thought it was weird, uncomfortable and smelly. I asked, does he wash those clothes? He said he doesn't because he doesn't wear them. They are just nesting materials. I said he should still wash them. He said if we were going to take the next step and move in together, I would need to accept the nest. I said if we move in together, we're getting a bed. He said he would rather never go to sleep if he couldn't use a nest. I said, fine, maybe we'll get a 2-bedroom. He took offence to this. I told him his nest was stupid as a mud crab, which I admit was childish. We are currently not speaking. I want to resolve this, though. I have a deep hatred of the nest, but he has a deep love for it. is 2-bedroom a viable solution? What can I do? And I think what I found really riveting about this is...
They want to sing, be a guest in my nest, come and be in my nest, be a guest in my nest, it's so great. Is that what you wanted to do?
No, well, now that you mention it, of course, with dance routines. No, actually, and I would point out, I think the Beast, when you do see his sleeping qualities, his quarters in Beauty and the Beast, it is a bit nest-like. I think, as I recall, there's a bit of hay and some like torn up pillows. Yeah.
Nest adjacent. Yes.
No, the weird thing is, I definitely understand
the weird thing is the weird thing. Which part? Yeah,
I get it. I can see how he's got there, and it is so weird and fucked up. But I almost feel like there, but for the grace of God, go I.
See, I just think there's only one issue here that needs to be resolved. The nest is fine. He needs to reimagine his construction materials. We can make the nest work. But we need to not be using clothes. I feel like now in this day and age of memory foam and, all the different various anxiety placating objects I have, I feel like a nest could be built with scientific ideas in mind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I can also completely understand that transition is going to be hard. And I remember when I was a kid, I think a lot of children of the 80s had this, I needed to fall asleep in front of the television, and I would make a nest of pillows on the floor in front of the television, and only there could I fall asleep. I couldn't fall asleep in my actual bed.
When you and I were very poor, we would look at each other and say, we just want to be able to afford a great expensive couch, like a nest. Remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and there was one point time in Sydney where our couch broke and we couldn't afford to fix it. And so then we did also every night we would create a little nest. So, yeah, I've definitely got nesting tendencies in me. And I've also got perhaps, I think that my husband would concur that perhaps my sense of how often one should wash things like sheets and towels needs a bit of a rethink.
Hang on a minute. How often? Okay, we're going to say it out loud, but we're going to say it together, except there'll be a delay.
Well, I should say now I've been socialised by him, and also he just does it. So,
all right, so before I change my sheets and I get made fun of in this house, 3, 2, once a week.
Every 2 months. I don't now, obviously, but yeah, I would say it was a 2-monthly thing back in the day. In fact, that's probably pretty generous, if I'm really honest.
I would say you are lying, sir.
Yeah, I would say shortly before the sheets actually just started to have the capability to walk out of their own accord. That's how
before they're going,
was.
wash me, Michael, wash me, please. Like they actually
And I would also
sentient.
add that this because I've been with Adrian all in my 30s and he's much more, he's closer to you. I associate it with the Italian vibe, but I don't know whether that's true. I don't know whether it's a cultural thing or whether it's just hygiene. But
for me, it's once a week. It's once a week. Yeah.
For him, it is too. He does it all. I feel like he's constantly washing sheets, and I'm just sort of think, and I used to be of that opinion of, but your towels, that's just you've washed yourself with soapy water and then you dry yourself, so that's just essentially that is like you've washed the towel. And then he would be like, can't you smell it? And I'd be like, yeah, it's gross. And also, can I say, my peak non-sheet washing was also in my 20s, and without going into too much detail, the sheets of a 20-something young man are perhaps in more dire need of washing than any other form of sheet.
Oh, mate, the blue light. If someone came in with a blue light, it looks like someone's been murdered with sperm, to be honest. I don't know what was going on for you and you were not changing your sheets more often, but I get made fun of. I do it too much in this household. That's what will be said about me when I die. Oh, gosh, you'd love to change the sheets. Fucking hell. Like that. Scott's just used to walking in and seeing it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we are pro-nest. I just suggest perhaps a different material to build said nest with. You have no issue with it, clearly, so...
No, it's not that I think that obviously he has to move on to the bed and everything like that. I just understand how this has happened. How someone could
We
develop...
need a transitional nest. Yeah.
Very specific sleeping preferences.
Got it. I just feel like, I don't want to generalise, but I met Scott and he slept on a mattress on the floor. I just feel like no bedhead. I just think maybe, without being gendered and gross, maybe men and women have different standards when it comes to how we sleep. I don't know. I don't want to generalise, but
I think that's unquestionably true.
No! Yes. All right, good. We've ended on a nest. I'm so sweaty. This is so sweaty. All right, I'll talk to you soon. You'll be back from Sydney. Soon we'll be in our own studio face-to-face, not next week, probably the week after. I'm very excited.
How exciting.
Glad Adrian's better. And we'll talk
Me
soon.
too.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Emsolation.
Oh, that's it. That's all we have time for. Are you pro-nest or anti-nest? You're going to be thinking long and hard about that, aren't you? Before I go, though, I do want to check the Emsolation voicemails. You know, I've been trying to get you all into the show for so long, and you're catching on, thank goodness. I've already listened to the voicemails. And can I just say, LaToya from Houston, Texas, baby. Can anyone else not hear someone say I'm from Houston and then sing like Beyonce? Because she's from Houston, Texas, baby. I love that someone's listening to us in Houston. Hello, darling. You'll hear LaToya first. Thank you for the voicemails. I love them. If you get our newsletter, which comes out every Thursday from Ben, lovely Ben, who's our executive producer, he has all the instructions in there how you can leave an Emsolation voicemail. Each week we'll pop them in. Next week we're going to, in fact, be helping one of you who didn't just leave a voicemail. You asked for some advice on how to get your husband to be less of a child and more of a partner. And I have quite the answer for you. Don't you worry about that. I've got a whole week. You'll be able to be like, it's like LA Law. It's like, what are some other Hill Street Blues, moonlighting. You can tell I'm a child of a boomer, can't you? What's a modern day lawyer? Suits. Yeah, man. You'll be able to get up there like Meghan Markle and give him a whole dissertation as to why he's not helping. He's doing his fucking fair share. That's enough, Em. Let's go to the voicemails and then that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you got something out of this week. And no, I was emotionally tortured about it for hours and hours afterwards. I love being me. Until next week, my darlings. Bye-bye.
Hi, Em, Michael, Chella, and the rest of the Emsolation crew. My name is LaToya. I live in Houston, Texas, and I just wanted to let y'all know how much I love the podcast. I'm so excited about the House of Gucci episode, and I'm probably super late to record because I live in Texas and y'all are in Australia, but that's okay. I can't wait. I love you guys. Bye.
Hey Em, hey Michael, hey Chella, hey Zeke, hey all the other amazing people that make this just an incredible podcast to listen to. Em, I used to listen to the podcast for your radio shows because I live in central Queensland and I don't get any of the good radio essentially, so I just had to find you on podcasts. And I just love the fact that you're real and you talk about such amazing diverse topics, sometimes completely randomly, which works for me as well. And I just love you all. Okay, bye.
Hey Em, hey Michael, my name is Abby. Em, I was one of your dancing vaginas in Sydney for your Rage and Rainbows tour. That's how I came across your Instagram, and I've been a listener of the podcast since the first ep. So just wanted to say thank you so much for being a massive highlight of my week. You guys are a massive inspiration for longevity of friendship, and I'm just so grateful for all you guys do. Lots of love, hope you're safe and well. Mwah.
Hello, Em, Michael and Chella. My name is Emma. I'm from Canberra, and this message is just to say that I thought that episode 1 of season 3 was excellent. All of your episodes are excellent, but I really wanted to commend Chella. I thought her commitment, she had obviously done her research, she had the receipts. She could have written a dissertation on Jason Momoa, and I bloody loved it. So Chella, well done. Thank you. Appreciate your commitment.
Emsolation with Em Rusciano is a Spotify exclusive podcast hosted by Em Rusciano with Michael Lucas. Executive produced by Benjamin Wasley. Produced by Em Rusciano. Edited by Ezekiel Fan at Entente Music. With videos by Liam O'Brien. Socials by Marcella Rusciano Barrow. With assistance from Jem Evans and Georgia Watts. Plus occasional technical wizardry, wine and coffee from Em's dad Vince. Embassy. Get more Emsolation by following the Emsolation podcast on Instagram, where you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. You can join other Emsolators at the Emsolation group on Facebook. The answer is Harry Styles. If you love what we do, share this podcast with a friend and make sure you're following us on the Spotify app. Thanks for taking time out to listen to this week's episode, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.